Hello there, and welcome back to War Thunder, to the second iteration of the 2.26 dev server, and I will look only at the ships. And there are not too many, basically one ship for each nation except the Americans and the Italians. And I also want to answer the question if the French beta testing of their blue water fleet is worth it or if you should wait. So we start with Germany, and Germany gets the Z46 in the tech tree. It comes after the Z43, battle rating 4.7, and it is basically very similar to the Z47. Outstanding feature is that you have some armor, but the problem is that the ammo racks are just above the waterline for both the front and the rear ammo rack. Also, I would not use the heavy mines because there are placed on the back of the ship, and even if an HE shell hits them, they all explode, taking the ship down to Davy Jones' locker. The problem is also that this ship does not get base use HE, just like the Z47, and in the current meta that makes it almost useless. You have 8 launchers for 12 torpedoes. The G7As overall pretty decent. I would use them without the torpedo mod or mode, and then they go fast for a medium range and hit okay-ish. Then we come to the star of the naval update, and that is the Bravi. It is a rank 4 destroyer, and it is opening up a new line. Battle rating 5.3, kind of what I was expecting, and it's not a master of anything, but a jack of all trades. So we have not really any armor. The ammo is overall difficult to hit, except here for the ready rack, and also those missiles in the back, which are the outstanding feature. We have the joint fastest torpedoes in the game, together with the V990 in the German patrol boat tech tree. 126 kilometers per hour, decent range and decent yield. You also have those rockets, the RBU 2500 for short range engagements, and for really long range you go to the 379mm V600P SAM surface to air missiles. They will be decent versus aircraft at long range, together with the radar, and versus ships you also can use them, but the 42 kilogram heavy warhead isn't that impressive. And the thing is that the reload of those missiles is quite long. If it will be faster if you're in a cap, I don't know, but we shall see. Definitely will give it a go at release. Then we come to Great Britain, and the HMS Daring is a new destroyer. Rank 3, battle rating 4.7, comes after the HMS Diana, and it's overall decent. We have hard-hitting torpedoes, but with really bad firing angles. We have 6 main guns, which is okay, but only 4.5 inches. We have no real armor. The good news is that we do not have a frontal ammo rack that is exposed above the waterline, compared to most of the other British destroyers with 4 mounted front guns. However, how this auxiliary ammunition store will react in terms of the damage model, if it will be a one-shot explosion of the entire ship, or if you just quote-unquote just take heavy damage, or if it just ignites also the main ammo rack, we shall see. But bow in, you have a decent chance of absorbing many shells, so that is the hit for the British in this patch. Then we come to Japan, and we have a new top end of the line ship, the IJN Ise. It's an Ise class from 1941, so we have some AA, some 25mm and some 5 inches with time fuse, but not really anything spectacular. We have the well-known guns that are basically the same as from the predecessor, the IJN Hyuga, and the Ise has 12 of them. We do not get HE, but a very high yield SAP, but that doesn't have the right fuse delay to be useful, so you have to resort to the AP round that has decent pen and a decent yield. It's not high yield, but it's okay, I guess, and the 140mm secondaries only get the SAP. That is quite efficient versus destroyers and some low tier light cruisers, but versus higher tier ships not so much. 45 kilometers per hour top speed, and that is overall okay. Armor is 300 millimeters, so you have to angle it, but the bulkheads in the front are also a bit angled, so that might pose a weak spot. And barbettes 300 millimeter, turret face is 305 millimeters. Then we have the ammo rack, and that is just under the waterline. And we can see on the armor that we have a 32 millimeter turtleback, but the actual deck plating varies from 75 millimeters to 32 up to 137 millimeters over the front and the rear magazine, and the mid magazine at least 122 millimeters of deck plating. And Italy, as I said, gets nothing. Hooray! And then we come to France. So this is how the entire tech tree looks. We have 3 premiums. I already made a video about the Aigle and the Dugong, and I was not really impressed with either of those, and I also think that they are extremely overpriced. Those are your closed beta entry ships, and they are, as it stands right now, not worth the price. And also there is the one thing waiting that I would expect to be a reasonable premium, so there is no tier 4 premium to research rank 5 efficiently. I have chosen to go with the 4 top ships, the Primorguet or Primorche, the Colbert, the Paris, and the Lorraine. So they are as following: rank 5, rank 3, battle rating 5.0 light cruiser. Then we have a rank 4 heavy cruiser, battle rating 5.3, and then 2 battleships at 6.3 and 6.7. And let's have a look at the Primorge. So that is basically a sister ship to the Dugong. 10-second reload for 8 155mm guns, with the ammunition being okay, but not really outstanding, and it's just a lack of DPM that's holding it back. You have 24 torpedoes though, and without the torpedo mod, they have a decent speed, okayish range, and an okayish yield, but not really a world beater. But having 24, you have 4 triple launchers with a complete set of reloads. That's the TLDR. And yeah, the armor is very thin, can be even pierced by HE, base use HE, SAP. They all have no problem with it. Strongest armor is 30mm. 10-second reload for 8 6.1 inch guns. Keep that in mind, because now we come to the Colbert. Armor is equally thin. We have a 50mm belt and then some 20mm plating. Good news is that the ammo rack is below the waterline. It's spaced armor and might be really difficult to hit, but when you hit it, when you hit the armored box, I think it's not really a big issue to pen it. Also 30mm for the turret all around, and there is no barbette armor at all. As you can see, there is a barbette with also some ready rack, but it's not protected. We also have overall 10 torpedoes that are the same, 1 triple launcher and 2 reloadable torpedoes each. So that's it. The funny thing is, those are 8-inch guns, so 203mm, with also 10-second reload at battle rating 5.3. So the ammunition, the HE is quite, competitive, I'd say, but it's the SAP BC that I'm not quite sure what to think about. The yield is very high, nearly 9 kilograms, but the penetration is as low as from the 5-inch 38 high pen low yield shell from the US destroyers. 151mm is not a lot, and if Admiral Hipper class angles against you, you cannot really penetrate it, except for a freak shell maybe. And also, if you get a full up tier and you encounter a Des Moines, you cannot penetrate it at any range, even completely flat broadside. The same goes for the Italian premium cruisers, the Zara and the Pola. So the good thing is you have high DPM, you have high yield, and you have float planes, but you have no armor, you're not particularly fast, and you do not have that many torpedoes. And also your AA, the 90mm are effectively useless, and it all comes down to the 37mm, and you have some of them, but not an extreme amount of them, and I think they are the single shots, so no fast firing 37s. That is bad. That is really bad. But I think in a down tier versus destroyers it might be okay. Up tier versus heavy cruisers, bad. That brings us to the Paris 6.3 battleship, and we have a hedgehog style battleship. It's rather short, it's really slow. The armor is on the lighter side, only 230mm for the lower and upper belt. The barbettes 280mm, turret faces are 290mm. Deck plating 40mm, 45mm, and then if you look at this, it's 40mm. There is no sign of a turtleback, so that looks suspiciously high. There is no sign of a lower deck. So yeah, we have overall 12 guns, but you have a broadside of only 10 because of the wing turret design. We have 12-inch guns. Reload is slightly faster than the average of 30 seconds with 28.1 seconds for a fully trained ace crew. And the shells overall are okayish. We have decent yield HE, we have no SAP, and then we have APC AP rounds, and they have quite a high yield actually, and the penetration is okayish, but at a Des Moines that is angled at 10km range, you have a hard time penning it. Just to keep that in mind. And the secondaries also have quite a selection of HE, SAP number 1 and SAP number 3. There is actually only 6mm of penetration difference at point blank range, so take whatever floats your boat. As I said, it's really short range. We do not have really that good of anti-aircraft guns, and the secondaries, while having a lot, 11 broadside, I think it's also 10-second reload, and they're not that effective versus cruisers. Maybe you can threaten a lot of destroyers, although you will not see that many of them. It's 1939 basically refit, but it is a World War I dreadnought that's not really that good. German dreadnoughts at least have a 20-second reload. Then we come to the Lorraine, and it has an 8-gun broadside of the 340mm guns, first type of its caliber in the game, and we also have less secondaries, and we have a bit less armor. 250, 220mm belt, upper belt is 160mm. Deck protection is 40mm, 30mm, so not really that impressive either. And also, yeah, no turtleback. Barbette 236 and turret face 300mm. Let's have a quick look at the main guns. They have a reload of 30 seconds. We have a decent yield HE, but in the current meta, not really that useful. We have the first AP with very high yield actually. That is coming close to the Bayern's 25 kilograms of TNT equivalent. And the penetration not really that much of an improvement compared to the Paris. And then we have this one, and that has the same yield and better penetration performances also at range because it's AP CBC round, and that's a tier 3 upgrade. So there it is. Secondaries are the same, and we have some AA, but it's on the lighter side. So the 75mm are useless in anti-aircraft effectively. But we have a lot of 40mm and 20mm single mount, so at close range it's quite a threat. And also X-ray reveals that we have gigantic looking MRX, but they are buried deep below in the ship, much below the waterline, except maybe this one, which is just at the waterline, but it's a relatively small target. And also really slow. So I think, as it stands right now, to come to a conclusion, the French tech tree is not worth getting into the closed beta test at the moment. The premium ships are not really that good, and they are way overpriced. Asking half the price would still be expensive, but it's just hilarious at this point. Wait until there are more additions to the tech tree, till we get also a coastal fleet for capping, winning the games, etc. And before we do not get a proper tier 4 premium, Gaijin is just milking this off the French fanboys, effectively. So there you have your answer. Is the French tech tree worth it? No, not at all at this current moment. And that brings me to the end of the video, because there are no further ships to show, not even boats. That's it for me today. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I hope you found this informative and not too long. And I hope you enjoyed this format. And please give this video a like if you did, subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll see each other on the battlefields, in the skies, and on the waves of War Thunder.